My father tells a story about like, yeah, when you was being born, me and your godfather uncles was out in the parking lot drinking Remy and, just having a good time. And we can't do that.
Right.
we can't, man. So, I tell guys all the time, man, be present, be there and protect her, because we know that Black women die at a way more rapid rate than any other race when it comes to childbirth.
Welcome back to the Express Yourself Black Man podcast. My name is Kizzle or Kofi, and I'm a mental health advocate, public speaker, and founder of a Kizzle brand, which is a project aimed at raising awareness for depression and helping people through difficult times. Studies show that on average, men lose 2.8 years of their life when they're under heavy stress. The point of this podcast is for me to gain those 2.8 years back. As a Black man, society often tries to tell me what I can't do, or talk about, which can often leave me feeling trapped. And so this podcast is my release. All right, y'all. I'm here with Brad Edwards of Dear Fathers, and we're going to be talking about fatherhood. But before that, I just want Brad to introduce himself. Brad, how you doing, man?
Man, I can't complain. Getting ready for this Christmas and this New Year's, man. Ready to get over with it.
Absolutely.
But man, thank you, man. Appreciate you having me, man. So I'm Brad Edwards, co-founder of Dear Fathers. I'm over the community aspect of what it is that we do, and overseeing a lot of our tangible resources that we provide for men that are within our community as well.
Absolutely. So for people that don't know what Dear Fathers is, can you just break that down? Because I feel like y'all have a dope platform, and I'm a big fan of what y'all do. So please, for the audience, break it down.
Man, appreciate it. So we are essentially a media-based platform, and we are geared and centered around telling stories of Black fatherhood from all angles, right? From the success stories and the great stories to the struggles, what it looks like as a Black father, man. In our society as a whole, we tend to look at Black fatherhood as being absent and just non-existent. The CDC has reports that say the contrary, and through our platform, we've had thousands of stories from Black men that are writing about what their experience is being a father, whether they had a father or not, whether they are living in the same household as their child or co-parenting. So Phyllis Fathers, 1,000 Phyllis Fathers is that story piece where guys just fill out these forms, they tell their story, and we post them to the website. So if you go to our website, you're going to see Dads in Delivery. So that's our storytelling piece where guys are talking about their delivery room experiences, right? So oftentimes we look at the process of childbirth as just something that the woman experienced. Like, nah, like the man is there, right? So we are having an experience. It's not the same experience, you know what I mean? We're not pushing a child out of us, but we're having emotions. We're having, new experiences with just the total childbirth, man. Like I remember mine like it was yesterday. So, we have daughter's memoir, which is, we wanted to give Black women a space and a voice on our platform as well. So that piece is about women saying, what their father's role, what it played in their life, what did it do for them during their childhood, and how has it made them the woman that they are today? How has that, dictated how they move in relationships and picking their partner? I love that one so much. I'm a girl dad. So I love that one because now guys get to look and see like how their actions are going to affect their daughter. The things that we do, whether you realize it in that moment, it's going to stay with this young lady until she becomes a young woman and a grown woman, the mother and a partner and all that. Well, that starts with her childhood and with her father being a presence in her life. So at the foundation, we are a storytelling media platform. What we've expanded in 2020, we added a resource, Straight Mental. So Straight Mental is our mental health virtual space that we have once a month. And we have guys from all over the country, and we have guys from all over the world. We had guys come in from the UK that are like, hey, I just want to have a conversation with some brothers from the United States to understand what your experience is versus my experience here, in the UK. So to me, that was cool as hell. So what we wanted to do with this was normalize this conversation of therapy amongst our men. If you notice within the Black community, the concept of having a therapist, sharing your therapist information with others, and talking about what you learned and the trauma that you've overcome in therapy is becoming more and more popular. Like, it's not like I like to say, we used to look at it as mental illness. Now we're looking at it mental health. Now we're looking at it from a healing perspective.
Right.
So with our sessions, we give guys access to seeing what that process looks like. As a Black man, I don't know, brother, are you participating in therapy at all?
Yes, I am. I am.
Was it an easy process, or was it a kind of difficult process in finding that counselor for you?
It was definitely difficult. And I tell people all the time, like, I should have started therapy probably 3 years before I started therapy, but I just didn't even, first of all, I didn't even know it was an option for what I was dealing with. And then on top of that, I didn't know what the hell, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to find a therapist. So I just always I was like, I should probably talk to somebody, but I'm not really going to do it until I really absolutely need to. And that's not the best route to take.
Yeah, and when things are difficult to start, we tend to not start them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in what we're doing, I give you two different therapists, or we have one house therapist, Nick Hardy, from based out of Houston, Texas. We always have a guest therapist on. So now we have therapists that have expertise in different areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have therapists that come from different regions. We have therapists that come with different styles of presentation. Mm-hmm. So now you have this as as the measuring stick, right? On, I like this style, I like this, this and the third. So when you come to us and like, hey, I'm looking for a therapist because I'm dealing with substance abuse, right? All right, cool. This is the person that we think fits based upon your questionnaire that you filled out. This is the style we think will work best for you. We want to get this as correct as possible the first time, because sometimes if people go to one or two therapists and it doesn't work, you know what, therapy isn't for me. Just those particular people didn't fit for you, and how you needed it, man. So that for me, it's been amazing to see guys come in and then contact afterwards like, bruh, I thought therapy was, everybody looks at it as being such a clinical, I'm saying? Like, I'm talking to a doctor and I can't really open up and share. When you had the experience, you're like, oh, it's like me and you having this conversation.
Exactly.
And it can really be that simple, right?
Yeah. And that's what I tell people all the time. I tell people yo, first of all, finding a good therapist is a lot like dating.
Yes.
You may go through a couple, right? But I don't know any guy. I mean, maybe I know a couple that go through a couple relationships and they're like, you know what, man, I ain't doing this no more. I don't want to be in a relationship. Like, nah, bro. I don't do, people don't do that, right? So it's like, yo, it's the same thing with finding a therapist. Like, yo, you may run into a couple that are, they're really not for you. But once you find that good therapist, bro, because trust me, my relationship with my therapist is amazing. My therapist is dope, man. We just on a Zoom call just like this. And like you said, it's just conversation, man. Just us talking back and forth. But what I wanted to jump into, you talked about the delivery room experience. I think that is so dope. Please, I don't know if you want to share yours or just talk in general about the experience. Like, what is that like? Because I have no idea.
Man, it is. All right. So unfortunately, in 2017, I lost twins to stillborns, right? So that was my first experience with the delivery room, and it was not a pleasant one.
Right.
So in me doing some research, and I really felt like, man, if I would have knew certain things, maybe I could have
prevented that.
You know what I mean? Some of this stuff. So when it came time for my daughter, Carrielle, who is now 1.5, I got together with a friend of mine who's a doula, and me and Kyra got together and I asked all these questions, right? Like, I wanted to know what to expect, what are some warning signs, what lingo means what, right? So I made myself a playbook, essentially. Like, these are the oxygen levels that are good for the baby and the mother. This is what the heartbeat needs to be like, because it was COVID, right? So we couldn't even have a doula in there. You know what I mean? So we had a text thread so that Kyla could ask questions if she needed, just to have the reassurance. But my thing was, and I tell guys all the time, like, I think in our parents' generation, like, my father tells a story about, like, when you was being born, me and your godfather uncles was out in the parking lot drinking Remy and, just having a good time. And we can't do that.
Right.
Like we can't, man. So I tell guys all the time, man, be present, be there, and protect her, because we know that Black women die at a way more rapid rate than any other race when it comes to childbirth.
Right.
So for me, it was I'm on everything. Like, I knew that I've talked to women where the placenta ruptured and they almost bled to death afterwards. So my daughter was out like that. It was like maybe 15 minutes of actual labor. But after that was done, and I noticed that they were like kind of looking a little funny. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, we have some of the placenta. I think we still have some in there. All right, cool. Like, let's make sure we get that out. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I know what that can do. You know what I'm saying? But before I didn't.
Right.
So, my experience was a pleasant one for both of my children. My son is 5 weeks. So I'm 2 under 2.
Yeah, you just had a son. Okay, congrats, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. So, everyone's experience is different, man. I would just implore to be present, pay attention, and make sure that you and the mom have talked about the birth plan, and that you are able to be an advocate for her when she can't be for herself, especially if you don't have a doula that's going to be present.
Right. Okay. So my question is, what are some things, I know you mentioned like oxygen levels, the placenta. What are some things that fathers can be mindful of when they're going into like the delivery room?
But just understand that the system isn't necessarily built in favor of the Black woman. If you look at medical history, they feel like the Black woman has a higher tolerance of pain than white women, and some of the stuff is still kind of being taught in these schools, man. Like, I remember this last time, the dude that was the white guy that was put in the epidural, his bedside manner was trash. So I had to be kind of more of a presence, because she's not here by herself, and I'll knock you out. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I felt. I was angry behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But you just have to be ever present, man, and make sure that you don't have to understand everything, man, but just understand enough to know what's going on.
Absolutely. So you have a 1.5-year-old and a 5-week-old. What are some of the things that change in the household? Because obviously it was just you guys by yourselves. Now you've added one child and then another child. What are some of the things that change that you feel like Black men should be aware of?
Man, what changed? What didn't change? You have to schedule your time as best as you can. You have to realize that this child that was already here isn't used to or accustomed to sharing her time with daddy and mommy now. Right. So now we're more intentional about creating project time for her and making sure that we have one-on-one time with her individually, as well as time with her brother. Man, I would say, I'm sure at some point it's going to be like, oh, I'm glad that we had them so close together.
Right.
But right now, man, it's hard. It is no joke. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being honest, man, because I don't know, like, I hear a lot of stuff about fatherhood and girl dads, and it always seems so like amazing, but you're sitting here saying like, listen, man, like, it's tough, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has its own challenges. Like,
right.
It's definitely, man, one of the biggest blessings ever. Like, there's nothing that compares to it, and it's nothing, I don't think, that can prepare you for it.
Right.
I think once you get thrown in the fire, either you have it in you or you don't. You know what I'm saying? But even if you don't, you got to figure it out.
Right.
But man, when they're your kids, man, it's just instincts.
Right. Yeah. Yo, so I was talking to my girl, right? And we were talking about kids, because we talk about kids a lot. And she was telling me, because she's had a lot of nieces and nephews that she's had to take care of over the years and stuff like that. So she's kind of already has all that kind of motherly, I guess, for lack of better words, training. And she was like, yo, when you have kids are annoying.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you. So you say, yeah, right away. I don't even need to ask the question. You say, yeah, right. You said, yeah, right away, man. You said, yeah, right away. Oh, man. So what, I guess my question would be, what are the things that you find, like, I guess, the most annoying, or some of the things that you just didn't even realize were things?
Man, I remember when my daughter was crawling and I was like, oh, I can't wait to she's walking and we could do this and the third.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, like you'll never use the restroom again by yourself in peace. Man, they just busy. They're busy, but
Mm-hmm.
they're inquisitive. They're trying to learn, trying to figure some things out, man. So it's annoying, man, but it's one of those good annoyances.
Right. Yeah. Now I feel that. Man, it's so interesting. Like, I thought that when they get to the point where they're walking is like it kind of gets easier, but now they're more mobile, so you kind of have to be more active.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Wow. Okay.
Yes, my daughter went through a phase of wanting to take everything out the trash.
Oh
So
man.
I'm constantly walking. Well, I was constantly behind her, picking up plates and some of her old diapers that she can pull out the trash can and all that kind of stuff, man. So,
Mm-hmm.
but the just watching them, their development and growth from day to day, week to week, month to month
Mm-hmm.
is crazy, man. Now it's to the point where, my daughter is so helpful, even with
Mm-hmm.
her little brother. Like if he's crying, now she's going over to rub his head or hand me his bottle. Like, hey, he probably wants this. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
they go through stages, and each stage has its own difficulties and it has its own bright moments as well.
Right. So I seen when I was on Instagram, like there was this post that was floating around about like heal before you have kids so that you don't pass your trauma down to your kids, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to ask you. So, first of all, one question is, if you don't mind me asking, have you been to therapy before?
Yeah,
Okay,
I've been actively in therapy for, I would say, 3 or 4 years now.
3 or 4. Okay, dope. And I guess my next question would be, the man you were 3 to 4 years ago, do you think you'd be the same father you are today if you were that man before you started therapy?
I could easily say no.
Okay. Okay. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at is like people don't understand like how much of a transformation you make when you're in therapy. Because I call therapy a transformation for real,
Mm-hmm.
because you start to uncover so much stuff about yourself that you honestly change as a person. Like
Mm-hmm.
people that knew you before therapy and after therapy, like you're a completely different individual. And that speaks to a lot of different aspects of your life, like fatherhood. And so it's not to scare anybody, right? Like I don't want to scare anybody and say, oh, if you have a kid right now, you've never been to therapy, then you're a bad dad. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to make the point like, yo, take your time and go to therapy, because when you have your kids, it will impact them in a positive way,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I guess it'll be better if you could give an example. Do you have any examples of things that you feel like you've learned in therapy that have helped you with fatherhood?
Yeah, so like if I go back to my own childhood, my father was ever present, man, a hell of a man, one of my best friends. My father grew up without his father because his father passed away when he was 3 years old, from a brain aneurysm.
Mm,
So my dad made his mistakes with me. So he was, very of a disciplinarian, right?
tough
So,
love.
yeah, exactly. And I had a lot of anger when it came to some of that stuff, even, into my adulthood. Going to therapy, I was able to address those things. And my disposition is what it is now because of that. So I I have yet to excuse me, I have yet to have a moment
Mm-hmm.
where I've been like frustrated with my daughter. Like anything that she's doing, I think about why she's doing this, right? So
Mm,
I remember when she was first born and she was like just crying, crying, crying. And my significant other was like, what's going on? I'm like, hey, she's a baby. Let's run down the list of things that could be wrong. And let's address it from that approach. So, me going to therapy, I learned how to be patient with a lot of things, how to process things before I react. And I think that probably one of the biggest keys and biggest lessons that I've learned to be a father right now. So I can deal with the chaotic moments that they are having and they're going to have differently than I would have without going to therapy prior to.
Man. And I think that is so powerful because I tell people all the time, one of the biggest things that I learned in therapy was how to really sit with my emotions, process them, and also regulate them. And that's exactly what you're talking about. That is a key component of fatherhood, in my opinion, because like you said, you have those moments where your kid is being annoying, right? Like, what are you gonna do? Flip out? Or are you gonna try to understand why they're being annoying or why they're crying or what's actually going on? Because there's a reason behind it, right? And then when we act emotionally, I tell people this all the time too. Like when we react emotionally, we put ourselves in a permanent reality based off a temporary feeling.
Yes.
Right. Like you have this feeling and now you're reacting off of that. Now your reality has changed based off of that temporary feeling. So you got to learn how to regulate those emotions, man. I'm so thankful that you said that, for sure, because there's a lot of people that I feel like can resonate with that. Like, yo, I have this child that's reacting a certain way, and I feel like I flipped out before in the past, or I want to flip out, whatever the case may be. But what you said is like, yo, why are they acting that way? And I think we don't do that enough, is try to empathize and then also try to understand. We just go straight into like reaction. But there's a few steps before that I definitely learned in therapy. Like, for sure, man.
I'll say this too, like even when I started mental sessions, we've had so many fathers come on and say, in their household with their children, they allow their children to express their emotions, to share their feelings. And as simple as that was, and it is, I thought to myself, like, damn, like I wasn't allowed to say why I'm feeling this way, you know what I'm saying, or what's going on. So it's like we were stifled, you know what I mean, with our emotions. Whereas now parents are, doing more actively, allowing their kids to just, share that they're having a bad day. I think we look at sometimes kids as little robots that can't have feelings. And, your kid may have woken up and he just feels sad.
Right.
He's allowed to feel sad, but he should also be allowed to share with you, hey, mom, dad, I'm just not feeling myself today.
Right.
So now we could kind of maneuver a little differently, because if you're not feeling your best, you know what I'm saying, he just has to deal with whatever consequences of your actions are because of how you feel.
Right.
But you don't allow him to share his feelings and emotions, man. I think that is something that, I'm learning from these other fathers in our groups. Like, okay, I need to make sure that I let my kids be vocal and let me know what's going on, so we can have that open line of communication, period.
Absolutely. And I think that's going to help you moving forward, because when your kids are going to grow up, teenagers, adults, all that kind of stuff, you're going to want to know what's going on, because you're going to want to know how to help.
Yeah.
Right. And when your child at a young age already feels uncomfortable expressing how they feel, once they get older, that uncomfortability is not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay. It's going to stay right with them. Right. Like I talk to my brother all the time. I'm like, yo, you got to talk to mommy and daddy. Like, yo, you got to talk to mommy and daddy. You got to talk to them. He has a different experience than mine. It's like he doesn't feel comfortable talking to them because he feels like anytime he goes to talk to them, he's getting criticized or ridiculed. So, and that's not and that's not the experience that I have. So I feel comfortable going to them and talking to them about stuff, but he doesn't necessarily feel that way. And so now, as a result, my parents don't have insight into what he's going through. And it's twofold, because it affects him just as much as it affects my parents. Now he's not able to get the insight from my parents, then the advice that he would need to further his life. And my parents are also not able to help their child further his life because he doesn't feel comfortable expressing himself. So it's like, yo, learn from, I'm trying to tell people right now, like, learn from my situation, with my brother's situation, with my parents. Allow your kids to express themselves, man, because they need that space. And on top of that, it helps them to create a level of emotional intelligence that I feel like in our generation, we weren't able to create that until we got into therapy. But we can learn we can learn a lot of these things at home, for sure.
So is your brother younger than you?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
What do you think changed the dynamic with you know,
Man, and you know, I'm glad you asked that question. So for me, I've always been the quote unquote successful one in the family, right? So like I went to school, I did what I need to do, got good grades. I never really gave my parents problems. My brother is kind of the opposite. He went to school. He's more extroverted than me. I'm in school, I'm introverted. Like I talk to my few friends, we laugh and joke and stuff, but when the teacher says shut up, well, you know, be quiet, whatever, right? I'm gonna listen, right? Or I'm gonna say my jokes underneath my breath. My brother's not like that.
Yeah.
He is going to express himself however he needs to. And that's the funny thing. Like outside and with his friends and stuff, he expresses himself all the time. And he's very blunt with how he feels and talks a lot, right? So growing up, my parents always had to give him more attention when it comes to school and just his behavior. And then that always fed into like the comparison. So why can't you be like your brother? Or why, you know, your brother's setting a good example. Why can't you be more like him? Blah, blah, blah. So he's getting those comparisons drilled into him growing up. So now he gets to the point where it's like, yo, y'all don't want in his mind, right? And he probably won't say this, but I feel like in his mind is like, y'all don't want me to be me. Y'all want me to be Kofi. Okay. Right? Like they want him to be me. But it's like, yo, he's his own person, right? We can't keep comparing him to me or any other person in the family. He has to be parented how he needs to be parented. Yeah. And I think that's another lesson is like, yo, that's something that I pick up from my parents is like, yeah, my parents are great parents, but I've learned that every child needs to kind of be parented differently. Like what works for me is not going to work for him. We have 100%. Completely different personalities, completely different things that motivate us. My parents could tell me, yo, we can see you getting a 4.0. And that would drive me to go and get it. Him, on the other hand, he doesn't like that. When you put that like, yo, we can see you getting this or that, it feels like pressure to him. Yeah. And so he just kind of gives up, for lack of better words. It's like, nah, you know, I don't want to, like, nah. He kind of goes in the opposite direction of me. Yeah. Right. So for him, it's more so supporting him where he's at and kind of pushing him and nudging him. But for me, straight up, just tell me what it is that you want me to go do. I'm gonna go do it. Right. And that took a lot of self-awareness for me to even get to this point and understand why he is the way he is. Because at first I was just like, yo, bro, you're not making no sense. Like, you're smart. You should be able to go get a 4.0. I was saying the same stuff. Yeah. I'm like, yo, bro, what's wrong with you? Like, you tripping. Yeah. But until we actually sat down and had those conversations, I wasn't able to understand. Like, but when we had those conversations, I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense. But again, like, I didn't understand because he wasn't feeling comfortable expressing why he felt the way he felt. It goes back to the point, like, yo, your kids gotta feel comfortable expressing themselves to you, because y'all can have a miscommunication or misunderstanding for years just off of your child not feeling comfortable expressing how they feel. Yeah. Man.
Yeah. And to me, that's wasted time, wasted opportunities, wasted experiences. Oh, it's something that's so simple, bro.
Right.
So simple.
Right. And yeah, so I mean, you know, he's definitely figuring it out, and he's taking his steps. So I'm proud of him for sure. But it just goes to show, I moved back to the crib like maybe like a year and a half ago because of COVID. So I work remote and all that. So I wanted to be close to the family. And during that time, I was obviously in therapy, and therapy just exposed so many different things about the family that I didn't see before because my lens was skewed. Right. But then when I started to actually really try to dissect what was going on, understand where he was coming from, where my parents was coming from, and see how I played a role in all of that too, I was like, wow, okay. So like therapy is not I think people get it confused with therapy too. Like individually, you learn a lot about yourself, but you also learn a lot about other people too. Yeah. That's because your lens changes. So you look at the world a lot differently. Like before, like I said, I used to look at my brother like, yo, bro, you tripping. But then it became more of empathizing and understanding, like you do with your kids. Like, okay, why are you responding this way? There has to be a block or something there. Man, geez, for real. So yeah, man. I try to tell you. This question. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you suggested that your parents go, or do your parents go, or what's their thoughts as it relates to it?
You know, so I'm in my mom is Caribbean, right? And my dad is African. And the only reason why I preface the answer with that is because I want you to understand the culture, right? So it's not just Black American. It's like they have the Caribbean roots and the African roots too. And so for them, therapy is like, why would I go to therapy? Right. And so I've suggested it to them for sure. But I've learned from my therapist that I can't
force anybody to do anything. So I suggested, and I throw it in conversation here and there. They know I'm in therapy, but at the end of the day, it's up to them to actually say that they want to do it. So I hope they do, but I don't really try to put too much expectation on them actually doing it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be like disappointed and all that kind of stuff. So I just say, hey, listen, y'all should go to therapy. This is, I got the resources and all that, but at the end of the day, it's on them to actually take that step. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I'm at the point right now where I feel like with my parents is like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah. I mean, they so set in their way. And that's why I asked, man, because I've suggested to my parents, I've shared the contacts and all that stuff. Short of me driving them to an appointment myself, I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Right.
And, I have another one of my buddies. He's Eritrean, and he said he suggested it to his mom, and she about cussed him out. So like, their generation, man, they that's not their cup of tea. So
right,
and we'll start from where we at right now and keep this going.
And man, what's so interesting is like it's such a. For me, it's like, why wouldn't you? But again, the empathizing and understanding, they've grown up in completely different circumstances.
Well, this is the thing too. Like, if you think about it, how scary is it to look in the mirror and really confront all of these past traumas or, all these other things that aren't right, but it's been so ingrained in you to address it and have that kind of that epiphany with yourself? That's scary.
Right.
Like, so, I mean, it's not easy even when we do it. You know what I mean? So,
right. Man. So, yeah, I think that's a big part of it is like they really feel uncomfortable with having to confront those things. Like, I know my mom and my dad are self-aware. I know they have a certain level of self-awareness to understand that they probably haven't handled all the things that they've gone through in their life the best.
Yeah.
But like going to sit down and talk to somebody about it, I think that definitely scares them. And that's really what the block is like, wow, nah, I'm good. Nope. I don't need like I think I talked to my mom about it. She's like, nah, I'm good. Like those people have their own way of thinking about things and that works for them, but it doesn't work for everybody. I was just like, okay, sure. Right. And I was like, all right, you're not ready. Like you gotta understand, like you gotta understand with certain people too, like you have to know when someone is ready to receive information and when they're not.
Yeah,
because
I push them.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, like when I first started going to therapy and learn all these different things, I try to tell everybody, I'm like, yo, bro, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, yo, bro, I just learned this thing for myself. I'm like, yo, bro, this could be great for you. Yeah. Learn about attachment styles, learn about this, learn about that. And then people are like, yo, you tripping. Like, this is not me. Right. And like they get mad at you because they're not ready. And it feels like you pushing them to something that they're not ready for. So it's like you really got to understand, you got to use your discernment in situations. You got to be able to read people's emotions and their body language and their behavior and all that stuff, and then be able to decide whether or not you want to say that, or put them on to whatever information. So you definitely got to be able to do that, because I've done it before and I've definitely gotten burned trying to tell somebody something that I thought was good for them. Right? Like I'm like, yo, bro, this is great. And he's like, nah, bro, you tripping. I'm like, damn. Wow, okay. Maybe I am tripping. Yeah. Like I am tripping a little bit because you're not ready for this.
Yeah, you're not. You didn't ask me for this. I'm just putting it on you, right? I thought about you when I was in my session. Like, yeah, I'm gonna share this with Brian. You know what I'm saying? And Brian didn't want that.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things about what we're doing, like I don't force any of my friends to come to these sessions. I don't ask. I ask maybe once or twice in the beginning. Outside of that, like you said, when you're ready, you'll come, right?
Right.
And not before then. But I have had guys, man, that I've known for years that have texted me like, hey, I'm finally ready for therapy. Can you shoot me somebody's information? So just, having those side conversations with guys that, I have a great deal of respect for. It's like, hey, man, it's hard for me to say this, but I need some help. Can you shoot me to somebody? So, people gonna come, man, and they'll pay attention to how you're developing in your therapy, right? They're like, man, like, bro, different. You know what I'm saying? And he said he'd be going to therapy. All right, when he hit that point, he gonna come to you, and that's how it happened.
The best thing you can do is lead by example.
Yes.
Right. Like you don't got to force anybody. Just keep living your life. And when you're in therapy, it's just going to show. It's going to show in almost every facet of your life just because you change as an individual. And people will want to know what led to that change. And it's going to be, the answer is going to be therapy. And that is the biggest testimony that you can have, especially as a Black man. Is like, yo, I've changed because I went to therapy. So now that makes everybody else think like, okay, what am I missing out on?
Yeah.
Right. Like, what am I missing out on? And as human beings, we don't like to feel like we're missing out on things.
Anything.
Right. So at that point, it's like, all right, bro, who your therapist, bro?
Yeah.
Like, I've had people that'll legit be like, yo, you're different, bro. And I'm like, yeah, therapy. And they're like, nah, bro, who your therapist? I'm like, damn, they got a wait list. I ain't gonna lie. But here's a bunch of here's a bunch of directories that can help you out for real, bro. Like, nah, for real, man. So yeah, I try to tell people all the time, man, therapy has literally been one of the greatest investments. And I'm so glad that you talked about how therapy has helped you with your fatherhood journey and has changed your perspective on things. Because I think if we're gonna change our community, we need to have stronger family units. And I think a big aspect of the family unit is the Black father. So man, thank you guys so much for what you're doing with Dear Fathers. I look forward to the content. I love when you guys post stuff because I'm always like it's gonna be something positive, something uplifting, or something insightful in our community. And I think we need more of that, just on social media, but just in the world in general, man. So I wanted to end off the episode with you just plugging in if you have any social media handles or where people can find you or Dear Fathers or any more initiatives that you guys are doing, for sure.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate this, man. I love this conversation.
Yeah.
So, man, kudos to you and what you're doing and bringing, these conversations to your platform. What you're doing with your own journey with therapy, man. Like that's what we have to do, right? And that's the only way we're gonna move forward as a community. So you can find us at Dear.Fathers is our Instagram. Dearfathers.com is going to be our website. That's where you'll find all of our stories, man. If you go in there, you can get lost looking at all this content and all these different stories that are coming straight from these Black fathers themselves. So, we have a docuseries that we shot with Tina Knowles that will be on the OWN network in February. Definitely be on the lookout for that, man. And if you have any listeners in the Atlanta, Georgia area, March 20th, we will be hosting a Dear Fathers family huddle on March 20th, a game against the Pelicans, man. So calling all the fathers, man, all the guys, whatever, bring your family out. We're going to be doing a pregame celebration with them, honoring some fathers that are in that area. Friday, we'll be doing probably a networking event. And Saturday, we'll be doing a run that morning and probably have something else planned out, man. So we're getting all those details together within this next week. We have our straight mental. It's going to be the third Thursday of every month starting in January. And then we have our book club, Books and Bourbon, excuse me, that meets every second Wednesday of each month, man. And we've read some hellified books in that club, and we have some great conversations when we meet up monthly, man. So those are the things that we have as of right now. We just had holidays with dads in Oakland. We had a Dad's Day at the Zoo in St. Louis. We have a Fatherpreneur event in Oakland and the roundtables discussions, mental health roundtable discussions that we'll be kicking off in Oakland in January. And we'll be having in St. Louis as well, and Dallas upcoming as well. So we have a lot of things, man, that we're working towards. And at the end of the day, it's about us coming together, telling our stories, changing this narrative that is dead and false, and really coming together as brothers, uplifting each other, heal, strengthen, and renew.
Man, I love it, Brad. Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it, brother. You have a good one, man.
All right, you too.
Thank you for taking the time out to listen to this episode. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you. So I really hope you got some valuable insight. And I hope I helped in some capacity, whether it be through the platform or the podcast. If you like to support for free, you can like this video if you're on YouTube, or you can share and subscribe regardless of what platform you're listening to the episode on. If you like to support monetarily, now we talking, you can go to shop.expressyourselfblackman.com and get yourself some merch. We have a hoodie, we have sweatsuits, we have shirts, we have hats, We also have an ebook on how to heal, where I discuss breakups, depression and suicidal ideations, anxiety, and attachment styles. I go in depth about my story with dealing with all of those things, and then I explain how to heal in an easy guide. It's easy to follow. It's easy to go from reading to implementing. So if you're interested in that as well, it's in the shop. The book is called From Hurting to Healing, A Black Man's Guide to Feeling. So consider supporting monetarily, but regardless of how you support, I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day.
Sometimes I know you feel like you ain't got nobody to speak to. A shoulder to lean on somebody you could preach to. No, you need to hear it, my brother, I love you. We got way too much to live for. We got way too much to live for. When we get it all, we want
like
more.
You lost another one.
When we get it, still we want more. I know it's hard, but you just gotta push on through. Only Brody always tryna bring you. If you ever feeling down, bro, you're never alone. If you ever feeling down, you can always hit my phone. If you ever feeling down, bro, you're never alone. Okay, hey, I'm your shoulder to lean on. Express yourself, distress yourself. I don't wanna talk about me, tell me how you feeling well. Since you know that you alive.